Magic, two bros/pros who cover the highs and lows of racing around the globe on every one of their shows. Real fans look forward to these guys and their last thoughts, cause they know they're not talking out of their royal ascot. What they say makes sense. So ladies and gents, sit back and relax as Blinkers Off presents The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.
What is up, everybody? I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
And this is the new look Magic Mike Show, episode 321. Mr. Somich.
Huzzah!
We are live on Facebook and YouTube. And you, if you're joining us live, thank you so much. If you're watching the replay, take a look around. We got new surroundings here, a little preview of what's coming in the future here on the Racing Dudes YouTube channel. We're real excited about what's going on. I'm real excited to talk Breeders' Cup with you. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. We're getting fancy here. Look at this. We got overlays. We're only on YouTube. We got all these things going on. It's kind of crazy.
This is going to be a lot of fun. So we're a week away from the Breeders' Cup. We just had the pre-entries come out a couple days ago, and now we get a chance to really overanalyze the living hell out of these 14 Breeders' Cup World Championship races. The draw is on Monday, so right now it's kind of a matter of getting our opinions, initial opinions out there. Really what you want to do to be prepared for the Breeders' Cup, in my opinion, you spend the time now doing your video research on the Europeans. You kind of deep dive into some trip notes and stuff. You get a general idea of who these horses are, who you're not really sure they could be. And then once you get to the draws out, then you understand, okay, here's how the pace is going to set up, and then you're ready to go. If you wait till the draws to start doing your homework, it's going to be a long week for you.
Yeah, it's tough because a lot of these horses we know. And so a lot of people will go into this and just make these snap judgments. I mean, we've talked about a lot of the favorites for a long time, what their prices are going to be, who we expect to win. You kind of have to just like block out the names in a lot of cases because we have these preconceived notions of a lot of these horses. And then I started looking at some of these on paper as the pre-entries came out. And I'm like, wow, it's a little different than what I expected when I saw, because I hadn't seen some of the numbers out of the last race and seen, watched all the replays multiple times. And you look at that and you're like, maybe there are a couple of favorites that are a little more vulnerable than I thought here. And maybe there are a couple of horses that I'm throwing out because of their name that I should really be using based on the numbers that they've run. So the last couple of days, it's been interesting to see myself specifically kind of move away from some of the really heavy favorites that I thought were going to be almost impossible to beat and move a little bit more toward some price horses in races, which is a great thing. I mean, the last thing I want is to fly out to California to just watch a bunch of chalk cross the finish line first.
Yeah, I've gotten the same way too, which is nice. I mean, there's always going to be some chalk that wins, and it happens, and it's looking like there's a few that are definitely solid, but there are some others where I think there's value. I was talking with Aaron Halterman last night, and I made up my initial top 4. I went for 6, but I made that up last night and kind of finalized it. And if you saw my tweet, I got to the point where I was in love with every single European that I saw. Still am in love with every single European whose videos I watched, and I am still 8 deep in the Breeders' Cup Mile right now. That has to be an all-button race. That has to be an all-button race right now.
It's funny. What we said last year, too, and 99 to 1 shot wins coming out of the Aidan O'Brien. It was the all Aidan O'Brien trifecta, if I remember.
We said it, and we didn't do it.
Yeah, I totally didn't do it. I was all over the horse that finished second, and that was one of the more painful beats. I think it was the bombs were live, like a $5,000 pick 4. That horse cost me the pick 6. Like, that was one of the more brutal parts of a wonderful weekend.
It is a wonderful weekend overall, the Breeders' Cup. I'm excited. So anyways, what we're doing with this show, because we're a week away, this is an AMA. It's an Ask Me Anything. You got questions about the Breeders' Cup, we're here to answer. We got some questions of our own that I've got ready from Mike, so it'll get the conversation going, but this is really for you guys, the fans. So if you're joining us live, let us know your questions. They can be silly, they can be factual, they can be anything you want. Mike, the best thing that you saw that doesn't include the Breeders' Cup pre-entries, go.
I got 2. Well, one of them I was going to have going into it. The Blues are still undefeated. So I'm still staying in the St. Louis Blues drum. They're actually fun to frickin' watch, which is absolutely great. Play again tonight, actually, against Colorado. So looking forward to that. But the Blues are still undefeated, so hell yeah, let's go Blues. Second one, I'm not sure if you watched Keeneland today. I've been prepping, so I didn't put anything out today. I didn't even play Keeneland today. But holy crap, in the last race, Yono, I don't know if you watched this horse. Freaking clouds. Out of nowhere, you just start seeing this horse just like weave through traffic and ends up getting up by almost a full length in the last race. A wild, wild, wild win In Dreams ends up running second for Brad Cox, but Yono wins at like 12-1 and comes out of nowhere. And you don't see that often at Keeneland, where you have a horse who's outside, dips to the rail, and makes up, I don't know, 8 lengths, it seems like, in the last eighth of a mile. So absolutely wonderful performance from Yono. May not ever result in anything, but just a really fun one to watch.
I'm going to put it on right here. Yeah, that's what we'll see. Because the Keeneland live feed is still, it was maiden claiming race, that one?
Yep, 150,000 on maiden claimers.
150,000. Okay, big boy maiden claimers.
So Brennan Walsh that ran down the second choice of the Brad Cox barn.
Oh, okay. I don't. Did I tell you this? I have 2 St. Louis Blues defensemen on my fantasy hockey team.
There you go.
I'm very invested in the St. Louis Blues' success this year. I went with that, and I also drafted 4 of the 5 guys on the Boston Bruins top line because for some reason I assumed they're just going to score. Wow, that horse did come from out of the clouds. You're right. That's right. It's just Yono. Wow. Yono. I've done a lot of talking this morning. Mike and I did a recording earlier, so a preview of what's coming on the Racing Dudes site and the YouTube channels. We've got previews for all the pre-entry races, and so I recorded 5 with Mike today. I recorded 5 with Aaron today. I had another meeting with someone else who's going to be doing some new video content for us. So my talking is a little difficult. So the more questions you guys can ask that Mike can reply to, the better in the show. So put them up in the comment section there. If you get them, Mike, the best thing that I saw was yesterday while I was doing a bunch of busy work. I had a movie on. I watched Dune.
Is it good?
It was a visual, man. Like visually, sound-wise, it was a lot like my experience with Interstellar, where visually stunning. Audio, very loud, but I loved it. Beautiful to look at. Do not ask me any plot questions after it's done. I understood it. I was following along. I got done, and I was like, Celeste could ask me right now. What happens? So there's these people on a sand planet, and they're trying to get more sand, I think. Yeah, but it was a lot of – I really enjoyed it. It's definitely dense. It's like 2.5 hours, but it was a lot like Star Wars meets Lord of the Rings, space opera – politics stuff. If those kinds of movies, if you like them to really sit down and enjoy them, it's a good one. It's not something you just put on in the background and just, I wasn't very good at the busy work because I was so engrossed in that.
Yeah, so apparently they're already coming out with the second one because of how well it did in the box office, even though it got released at the same time. And there was a funny Anakin Skywalker review where it gave it 1 star. Too much sand. I hate sand. I thought that was actually pretty good.
That is really great. Excuse me. Oh, man. All right, so on today's show, this is going to be a live Breeders' Cup AMA with the fans. Dennis, I appreciate the comments on my soothing voice. So if you're watching this live, throw them in the comment section here. If you're watching along on the replay or listening, it's going to be a lot of fun, I promise, without even knowing what's going on. Mike, let's get into it, buddy. Right. Oops, I don't have this on this side. We're on the other side here.
Oh, man, look at you. You're going to have to work it out on the fly. How are you ever going to do this?
Riders up.
Nice.
All right, Mike, let's talk about the Breeders' Cup. I have no idea how that went. Breeders' Cup coming up. This is the first question that I have for you. I'm going to dive right in with a hard-hitting one for you. I don't know if you saw the drama that unfolded yesterday, Wednesday, on Twitter when the pre-entries came out. Apparently some people who work for NYRA didn't think that United or Acclimate deserved to be in the Breeders' Cup turf over a horse like Trip Huvan, who, as of this morning, Imperador is out. Trip Huvan is officially going to be in the Breeders' Cup turf, so it's kind of a moot point. But boy, the daggers being thrown around on Twitter yesterday were something fierce. So my first question, should Acclimate have been drawn into the main field of the turf over Trip Huvan? Was it the right move?
Look, it's tough. I would lean toward yes. I mean, if you have United in there, Acclimate makes a ton of sense. They both ran 1-2 last time in the John Henry turf over at Santa Anita. I kind of like the fact that we're showing some love for the California turf horses. And really, it's a moot point because neither of them are going to freaking win anyway. So you can argue all you want about this, but it's like, it's sometimes when it's the all-star snub and it's like the 13th guy, you're like, do we really care? Like, do we really care? And in my mind, this is one of those, do we really care? The Acclimate part of it makes it a little more interesting from a pace perspective because he's going to inject a little bit more pace into it. But I mean, come on, one of the Euros is winning, right? Or domestic spending, but it's not going to be Acclimate or Trip Huvan, right?
No, it won't be. I think more the discussion point was where I was aiming for, and I'm glad that you went that way. It was funnier, but Trip even won a grade one, but they were allowed to race on Lasix, which he did, so therefore it didn't count because at the Breeders' Cup you can't run on Lasix. So why would they reward you for having an unfair advantage? So I guess in that point, was it the right move because he won a grade one but used it with Lasix? Is it correct that they completely ignored that?
Well, I mean, there was no whip in that race either. So does that matter? Like,
That's a great point.
there's a bunch of
That
things
should have evened it out, right? Like you can have
there's no
Lasix,
whip,
but you can't have the whip.
See, well, to me, like there's so many different rules, and we talked about Monmouth and the craziness of those rules, and now these like some places Lasix, some not, this, that, the other. Like we just freaking figure it out and go A, no Lasix, B, Lasix, and just go because it's ridiculous at this point that it's like back and forth, and here you can, here you can't, you're two, you can't, you're three, you can. Like it's out of hand. So on the like, hey, grade one doesn't count. That's probably a little dirty because it's a grade one. And it was graded as a grade one to start the year, and they knew that they would be able to run with Lasix, and they knew they wouldn't. Well, they probably didn't know they weren't using a whip. But when you're given a graded level at a stakes race, to then say some are graded lower because you're using Lasix because we're not allowing Lasix, it's ridiculous. So that's a little bit of a snub in that sense. But yeah, I mean, I don't really mind one being in over the other. Like again, Acclimate's probably more important to the field than Tribune is, if you look at it that way, just from a pace perspective, like I said.
Yeah, I agree with you. Speaking of turf, first question from the comments. Corey wants to know, how will the firm turf affect these Euro imports? Mike, give your opinion. I've got the results from 2017 pulled up. I'm going to quickly count how many Euros won.
Well, here's the thing. I think the Euro horses are better, period. But I also think that being in California almost gives the Euros an additional advantage here. And why do I say that? Because they know the turf is going to be firm. They're sending their best firm turf horses over. Right? They'll send their best horses, period. But then they'll also send their best firm turf horses over. When you're at Keeneland, when you're at Belmont, when you're, in some of these places where it's most likely going to rain or there will be some cut in the ground, it's a little more difficult to just send your best horses over on the firm turf, but also you want to have some of your cut in the ground horses. So you're sending your best over, but then you're not able to send your firm turf specialists as well. In this case, I think we got a lot of horses that really like firm turf in Europe that are going to show up in California, in addition to the best of the turf horses in Europe that will show up in California. So I actually think I'm going to upgrade some of these Euro horses that maybe don't look as good on paper, but have performed really well on firm turf over there. Their trainers are sending them over specifically because they wanted this firm turf.
On that point, the preview that'll be on the Racing Dudes YouTube channel soon of the turf race, Aaron Halterman talked about Tarnawa and how she's run second a bunch of times in Europe. The defending champion, by the way. She got second on extremely soft turf last out. And so you could look at that as a string of seconds and like, okay, maybe she's not as good as last year. Or like Mike's saying, maybe that horse just really needs that firm turf. So that's a good one to keep in mind. I've got the results. Back then they only had 6 turf races. There wasn't the juvenile turf sprint yet. 3 of the 6 were won, and I would say the big 3 of the 6 turf races were won by Euros. Talismanic in the turf, Ujeda in the filly and mare turf, and Mendelssohn in the juvenile turf. Juvenile fillies turf went to Rushing Fall, turf sprint to Stormy Liberal. They weren't winning that one, and then the mile to World Approval.
Yeah, when you take out the turf sprints and you look at the European records, it's staggering how many of these races that they actually win. It's amazing, too, if you go back to Santa Anita. I think I don't remember the exact numbers, but I went back 3 or 4 Breeders' Cups in California. It was between, I think it was 33 and 50% winners were European. And that includes the turf sprints where they, I think, have won once or twice. Like, it's ridiculous. So I truly believe that, a lot of these trainers are actually targeting these races with their best firm turf horses and able to go out to California and ship in and win. So it's one of those where I'm going to still be leaning pretty heavily on the Euros. The turf sprints are the 2 places that I will not lean as heavily. But that being said, Glass Slippers won last year, although that was a little bit of a collapsed train wreck type race.
I still say, it's not like I would have had the winner if they disqualified her. I still don't think she should have been allowed to win because the jockey cams that they had on, which I can't wait to see what they do with Del Mar. But the jockey cam on glass slippers, like you see, just knocks his way through. And I guess like you got to do that way, bull
A
in
little
the
bit of
China
bully
shot.
ball.
But I mean, come on, like they just let that roll. I'd be curious to see what happens in California with the CHRB stewards with that one. But Corey, thank you for the that's a great question. Get us going. Jason, what's up, Jason? He wants to know who's your top single on either day. One like major single for you, Mike. Who is it?
I mean, so right now, like Averly Jane is probably my most confident horse in the entire weekend. There's a couple turf sprinters coming from Europe that I think are interesting in that spot, but I think Averly Jane is probably the most deserving favorite or heaviest favorite in my mind that should be there. The other one on that front is Life is Good, that I would expect to win. Life is Good is facing a little bit more pace pressure from Ginobili in the mile. Maybe it could set up for someone, but I still think Life is Good is just a freak. And we actually haven't seen the complete level of talent from Life is Good that we have from other places. I'm hoping Ginobili takes money to get somewhat of a decent price on Life is Good, because anything around even money, I think, is a pretty fair price there. I'm probably going to take a stand in the turf. I'm not sure what direction yet, but I think that might be a race I go short in. It may be Tanawa. It may be Love. I haven't really finalized what direction I'm going to go, like I said, but I think that's a good stand race if you want to spread a little bit more. The horse that I will probably not be singling that I was going to single for sure 2 days ago is Gamine. I think I'm going to try and take a stand against her right now.
Really? Let me ask you, because we keep every time that I'm on a show of some sort, another horse has dropped out. At this point, it's going to be her and two horses. So you would think that would set up better for her because of the pace scenario.
You would. The draw will matter. I want Bella Sophia to draw inside of her. And I realized last year Serengeti Empress beat her to the punch. I'm not sure, after watching Gamine replays, that we have the same Gamine on our hands that we did a year ago. I think we might have a little bit worse version of her. And I like what Bella Sophia's been doing to be able to improve. Now, if Gamine runs back to last year's Breeders' Cup race, good night. Good night. But, I'm not sure she has that in her right now. It's been a slower year for her, not as many races. You've got everything going on in the Baffert barn. We saw what happened Preakness weekend when that happened, and I'm not saying it's a direct correlation, but it's definitely something you have to at least consider. I'm a little concerned that Gamine is going to be she's not someone I'm singling anymore. We'll put it that way. And she's going to probably be the shortest price all weekend.
She'll definitely be one of the shortest prices. My top single either day is Life is Good. It takes a lot for me to remember a horse's debut. Because not because I see so many, but it's just like it takes a lot to really stand out. And I remember watching it, and I was sitting right there in the living room. And Aaron and I had been texting, and he's like, if Life is Good wins, do you think he's a top 5 pick? And I was like, I think so. He'll have to be impressive, but I think he's a top 5 pick in our fantasy draft. They enter the far turn, and I started laughing because I just saw the Jets kick on without the jockey moving. And I pick up my phone, and I call Aaron. Aaron picks up when the horse is at the top of the stretch, and the two of us are just on the phone laughing to each other, going, holy shit. Holy shit. The whole way in this stretch. This horse we've always thought was immensely talented. He is going to be my top single on either day, for sure.
Yeah, I assume that this comment from Dennis here is specifically about Averly Jane. Yeah, she hasn't faced a ton, but she has beaten them handily, and her figures, both from a time form and a buyer perspective, are above this field. And the European horses that are coming in, Armour really is probably going to be your second choice. I think Armour is probably the most dangerous European horse. Just don't scare me as much. I think she makes the lead, and I think she's really tough to catch, especially on that Del Mar turf going only 5.
Where was it? I just missed it. Vinny says no love for Jackie's Warrior on the single front. Well, we gave one, our top single. I think I don't know that I believe he's a solid single. He's definitely my top pick, but I could create a scenario after the post draw, especially in which Jackie's Warrior is in trouble here. So I want to see what the post draw looks like for me. What about you?
Yeah, I'm interested in the post draw. I also have some concerns around Del Mar. And when you look at the horses, like the body structure that does well at Del Mar, it's usually a little more thin horse that is able to just kind of glide over the track. And Jackie's Warrior is huge.
How deep it is, yeah.
Yeah, and Jackie's Warrior is a big, big horse. And so it leaves me a little bit of a concern. You think about, like, okay, let's talk about other big horses. Well, Arrogant, like, hated Del Mar. That's their classic massive horse, high cruising speed. You laugh at me. Dr. Post's another one of those who hated Del Mar, right? Like, but it's these bigger horses that sometimes struggle over the Del Mar track, and that is
Arrogate.
That's exactly what Jackie's Warrior is. And so there's a little bit of concern for me at Jackie's Warrior in that front. Now, I may end up keying around Jackie's Warrior in a couple sequences. But for me, Jackie's Warrior is not a slam dunk single until I see the post draw, everything like that. And even then, like you got to try and beat a couple of these if you're trying to string together multi-race bets. You got to choose a couple to throw out, and you got to decide where you're going to eat the chalk. And, unless you're playing massive win wagers through the whole thing, which I'm actually thinking about doing if I get a second PCPC entry, is just doubling up on 5 favorites. It can be very tough to make money unless you're really hammering it. So, yeah, if you want to single Jackie's Warrior, yes, but then you're also singling 2 or 3 other races around it to be able to be profitable.
Great question though from Vinny. Glad you brought that up. It's hard because I'm trying to like read for questions as they're initially and like pause there, but then I'm looking at another screen looking at. Thank you for Mike for keeping up on what people are saying. You know what? While I keep looking, let's go back to a question I got here because you know why? Because Dennis sparked this in me. The Japanese are sending 7 over more than they've ever sent, and I think there's one at least that has a strong chance to win its race. They've never won a race in the Breeders' Cup. I think it'd be a really great story if they can get one because they are a growing world presence in the racing scene. So I think it'd be really great for us and for them if they do it. So in your opinion, Mike, will a Japanese horse win?
I don't have any picked on top, but we talked about this multiple times this year. The Japanese horses are getting significantly better. I will definitely be using a couple underneath based on what I've looked at. I mean, you just see these horses. They've been more competitive this year than we've seen ever in the international circuit. And I would expect we're going to see the same thing over the Breeders' Cup. And I would say within the next 2 years, we will see a Japanese horse win one of these races.
There it is. Yeah, the Japanese influence in these races. Yeah. Loves Only You has first preference in the filly and mare turf, and right now she's my top pick.
Ooh, look at you.
Over Odaria. Now, this is before post draws, jockeys, all that stuff. But when I made that initial list, I did that, and I thought I was nuts. And then I texted someone whose opinion I very much trust, and they said that was their top pick too. And I went, I think I just Rain Man this top 4. I'm gonna leave it, and we're not gonna touch it ever again. Except I like Diamond Wow, and she's out, so that I do have to touch that. I'm looking back here too. This is interesting. The Breeders' Cup juvenile winner, by my count, has never won another Breeders' Cup race, which is very crucial for Essential Quality in the Classic.
Well, he's not winning anyway.
Well, but it's just interesting that they've been done this since '84 and it's never happened. It's probably partly because it's very hard to get a horse into the Breeders' Cup Classic and into the juvenile to win one of them.
Well, you have to think about, especially recently, that means you have one shot, right? Because if you win the juvenile, then you're probably going for the Derby. If you go for the Derby, you're probably only running as a 3-year-old if you're that good, which means you can only win the Classic as a 3-year-old, which makes it a little more difficult. So that means the horse has to be at peak late in their 2-year-old season, early in their 3-year-old season, and late in their 3-year-old season with no chance of injury. Because if they've already won a couple of those races, there's no chance you're going to stud. Can I pick up one real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think this is an excellent question from Dan. I think
that's what I was going to pick.
There we go. I think it's super relevant for this specific Breeders' Cup because I'm not someone who again loves chalk, but we've seen on these big days all year chalk, right? It's been heavy on the chalk side. So what's my game plan to find value? How do you look to key a horse on top, the exacta, super try, bet it flat, doubles, pick 3s, pick 4s, etc. For me, the pick 3, pick 4, and pick 5 sequences, if I end up with multiple chalks as the horse that I like, I will either bet extremely thin. I'm talking like $50 pick 3 cold. I'm talking like $25 pick 4 that's 1 by 1 by 1 by 2. Not spreading out at all, just trusting that in the race I don't have a super big opinion, that hopefully my top opinion is right. And if I have back-to-back singles that I really love, I will be playing the double over playing pick 3s or pick 4s. I think it's one of the biggest mistakes people make. Like they'll go, single all, or single 4, single 5. When if you had just bet your single double for the entire value of the ticket, it pays significantly more than the majority of your single all legs. And like I've seen people who will play a double with like a big favorite or one horse with 4 or 5 horses in a 10-horse field. Well, 5 of your horses pay less in the double than just betting it all to win on that big horse that you liked. And you still have 5 other entries in that second race that you could lose the double on and get nothing back. So for me, if you think it's going to be chalky, if you're looking at these shorter prices, you've got to hammer those times that you like them. And if you like a pick 3, if you, let's say you like the first race and third race, it's let's say Life is Good and Jackie's Warrior, for instance, right? Mm-hmm. Finding a 6-1 or 7-1 in the middle of those two is a great way to try and increase value, right? And if you were going to bet $50 on that 6 or 7 to 1, then maybe playing that $50 pick 3 where you like both of the bookends makes a ton of sense. I mean, so for me, it's really looking at which way you like there. From a single race perspective, do not spread out at all in the exacta try or super if you are putting these horses on top, because there's no value in spreading out. You would be better off if you're going to play, let's say, a $2 try, and you're going to go single over 2 horses over 5 horses. It'll cost you $10. You'd be better off just playing a $5 exacta single over the 2, because long run, you're going to get a higher return and win more often playing that way than adding those 5 horses and spreading out too deep and minimizing your return on that original investment. So for me, when you have favorites, it's all about shortening everything up and betting more on those shorter results.
So I just pulled up the wagering, the race menu for the order on Saturday. Race 6 is the dirt mile. Race 8 is the sprint. If you like Life is Good as a single and you like Jackie's Warrior as a single, you're going to go heavy with a 6 to 7 to 10 to 1 shot in the Filly and Mare Turf, which produced an 18 to 1 winner, which Aaron Halterman had on top in the Racing Dudes Guide last year. So,
there you
boom.
go.
There you go. 18 to 1 with a, let's say 2 to 5 and a 3 to 5 winning in a stone cold pick 3, Mike. I'm not good at those numbers. What's a rough estimate for that payout?
36, 72. If you have even money, 16 to 1, even money, $72 would be a win parlay for a buck. So let's say
play that by 100.
Probably pays 50 cents, or probably pays $50 for 50 cents. Like, because you're going to get increased odds across the 3, and you have a single takeout versus 3 times takeout. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good way to do it. Nice plug, Magic. Well done. And look, you got to make sure that man, the BCBC is going to be nuts.
When you were talking about like your doubles and your pick 3s, like I'm going to do this, and I'm like, okay, but at the BCBC, how many zeros are you adding to those numbers?
There will be $1,000 doubles being played. I mean, literally, if I'm trying to get a second entry, and my whole goal behind the second entry is to play 5 all-in win bets. To 5, because I think there are 5 favorites that are between even money and 5 to 2 that I think are all very, very likely to win. And if I'm able to do that and you double up all the way, you end up at 240,000, which would win any of the last 4 years of the BCBC. The amount of money I'd have on Nick's Go in the last race would be awfully scary, but that is how you get it done.
I will literally carry you out of the track on my shoulders if you win that thing. If you're just like, yeah, and then you just cash for $240,000, the most that ever happened.
It's also, make sure you check out the wagering menu for the Breeders' Cup. Nick sent me, I think it was a DM. Thank you, Nick. I always appreciate you sending me these updated wagers. They have a turf pick 4. There's a 2-day pick 6. There's a bunch of different ways to get involved in races and be able to kind of string together some of your big opinions. One of the key things about the Breeders' Cup is you don't have to play every bet every race. Like it's hard.
Don't do it. You don't have to. Don't do it.
Cases, but you have so many options to make money here that you don't have to play every single pick 3 and every single pick 4. This is a good spot a good couple days to pick your spots, manage your bankroll properly, and be able to get the most money down on your biggest opinions.
A race I traditionally I don't take off, but I'll put like $10 max on every year, the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. And this year's no different. But the Turf Sprint this year, I think the mile is going to be another $10 day race. I don't know. That starts the pick 4. Shit.
The Turf Sprint's going to be one of my biggest betting races of the weekend. That's not in the BCBC, I should say. I think it's one of the most wide open races of the weekend. You're going to see Golden Pal as a heavy favorite. And I think Golden Pal may be the second worst favorite of the entire weekend. We were doing a preview, like you mentioned, for this. One of my favorite things. There's only been one 3-year-old that has won the Turf Sprint since 2008 when the race was brought out. And so the lack of 3-year-olds winning it, the fact that I don't think Golden Pal was that impressive at Keeneland. This is definitely the deepest waters he's ever been in. I think Golden Pal is not a deserving, 6 to 5, 7 to 5 favorite.
There's a lot of chat about the wagering menus going on right now, so we'll stick on this one. Oh damn it! I was going to ask you a question. Shoot, I forgot what it was. It'll come to me. So the special, where is it? Nick talked about the special daily doubles that they have, which is a fun one. I've only played one of these a couple times and I actually made good money. I should do it again. You have the juvenile turf into the turf. You have the juvenile fillies into the distaff, the juvenile into the classic. So basically, the juvenile races pretending to what they would be if they were older. Those are fun because then you get the Friday, Saturday. You have to wait. You have to sweat it out for a whole day. But it can be a good one to do. You've got the all-turf pick 4, which is the turf sprint, the Filly Mare Turf, the Turf Mile, and the Breeders' Cup Turf. Even for a 50-cent base. God damn.
That might be your biggest paying pick for the whole weekend, which is
Yes,
crazy.
100%.
But these different options are great ways to be able to find the best way to bet your opinion. And that's what I'm stressing here. Like maybe you have a big opinion in the juvenile turf, and then you really like a horse in the turf. The only way you connect those races is with these type of sequences. So it's always good to kind of check out these specific sequences and see if your big opinions line up in a spot where you can just hammer one and then hammer the other, versus having to try and figure out how to do it with the specific races that are around them. So make sure you look at the special bets on both days.
I also make sure you be careful with the payouts, or not the payouts, the track break. The takeout. Sorry, that's the word I was trying to think of. The takeout. I saw people saying there's gonna be like a 23% pick 5 takeout. If they go off, do they have to go off of California's whatever the California rule is because they're in California?
I think the Breeders' Cup kind of does their own thing.
Do they? Okay. I saw some talk about that. Anyways, let's get away from that. That sounds depressing. Jason with a great question. Who is your underrated jockey that could step up and have a big Breeders' Cup? Note to Magic, Flavian Pratt no longer counts as an underrated jockey. Damn. Okay. Mike, who's your underrated jockey?
Man, I don't know. It's tough on these days.
Underrated.
To pick an underrated jockey. I mean,
world's best jockeys. I'll give you one who I think doesn't get the respect I think he deserves, and it's Brian Hernandez Jr. I think that guy, when there's a race where you're like, man, how did that horse win? And it's in Kentucky. I feel like a lot of times it's either Talamo or Brian Hernandez Jr. So since he's got a couple horses that like rattle and roll, I'm going to go with him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say it's going to be one of the Kentucky guys or Middle America guys if you're going to look for someone. Brian Hernandez Jr. makes a ton of sense. I mean, look, like Flavian Pratt, Rosario. I mean, those guys, they're not under the radar, right?
Tyler Gaffleone?
I mean, but Gaffleone I don't consider under the radar. I mean, he's absolutely whooping it up at Keeneland right now. He's winning by 20 races or something. Raylu, there we go. I mean, E.T. Baird.
Is he riding Hidden Connection? Is he going to keep them out?
I would hope he does. I hope E.T. Baird keeps them out on one timer. I mean, maybe the story will will produce one of those under the radar jockeys that becomes a great story at the Breeders' Cup. But I mean, it's tough when you have, DeTore and Pratt and Moore and all these like top jocks that are coming in from everywhere. I kind of want to say Dylan Davis, but I don't know if he's going to get him out. But he's been getting really good mounts in New York. I've been talking about him for 3-4 weeks. He won a grade 1 up at Woodbine. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked with how much confidence he's riding right now if he got 1 or 2 and was able to get a win. But I would – a lot of jockeys just need to stay still.
I was going to say that's not an E.T. Baird thing. That's a jockey thing.
But I would think that, hopefully we get one of these big-time stories from these smaller jocks that get home. And bet Mitch get rich does not work for me. So I really hope that Mitch Merle does not. It
really doesn't. Also, is he coming to the Breeders' Cup? Does he have him out?
I would be surprised if he does.
Yeah. Some of you guys are saying riders. I'm like, yeah, like Mitch. I like Mitch. Who's he riding? Has Ricardo still not won at Keeneland? Is he going to go over?
He's straight over going into the last day. And we're talking like, and Asmussen's 1 for. It is brutal for the two of them out. Like, not a great time for your barn to be cold. And you would think that you'd have some good Asmussen 2-year-olds that would be debuting. Like they had a gun runner today that debuted and got bet, which is amazing when you're 1 for 70 and 0 for 50 something. So they've had good horses, just haven't been able to get the job done.
So on this note then, when a big barn like that gets cold at a different meet right before the Breeders' Cup, does it affect you at all when you pick those horses, or do you separate it?
I mean, you got to separate it when it's Asmussen. I mean, I bet he has a cold barn every day of the year somewhere.
That's true.
I bet he's got a hot barn every day of the year somewhere because he's got like 20 barns. So I don't think with him you can really specifically say, oh, okay, he's cold now, you can't bet him at the Breeders' Cup. His top horses generally run well too. Like I can't remember. I'm sure someone will throw a couple at me, but the last time, like 5 Asmussens all tanked at the Breeders' Cup, right? Generally, his top horses have run well at Saratoga. They've run well at the Breeders' Cup. So I'm not gonna fade Asmussen just because of what's happening at Keeneland. I may fade Asmussen for other reasons, but not because of what's happening at Keeneland.
Joseph had a question. I think it's pretty easy to answer. Keeneland, tons of track records last year, right? So that actually is a good question. Tons of track records set last year. Chance any track record gets set at Del Mar this year?
Yes, I think there is a decent chance it does.
Oh, I was going to say hell no.
I think the track is going to be pretty tuned up. Generally, we've seen that. And you have some absolutely elite speed horses. And I think those are the ones who are most likely to set their track records. And so horses like Life is Good, Nick's Go, Jackie's Warrior, who are going to go to the lead on the dirt, go very, very fast. If that track is fast, I think all the horses like that have a shot at least, especially since I do think like Life is Good could be a generational talent in that sense.
More likely to happen on dirt or turf, you think, a track record?
Dirt.
And see, I would go with turf. I just the dirt to me, and I hear what you're saying about the track being tightened up pretty good, but I'm used to Del Mar's dirt just being so deep and slow. So, but the horses just got there yesterday. Was the first time there, or just recently able to take a jog on the track. So we'll see what the reports are from people who are actually on it to see what they say about it. Question here from Mark about the Classic: Will the pace be as hot as projected in the Classic? Seems set up for him. He thinks the Essential Quality or a big bomb from off the pace.
So, I mean, to me, the question is what's defined as hot. So, and I say that because, we have a lot of horses that seem to want to be forwardly placed. I'm still not sure any of them are as fast as Knicks Go. And then Knicks Go went 46-3, 2 back, and 110 and 1 for 6 furlongs, and that wasn't a hot pace. That was Knicks Go cruising. And so a lot of it depends on what you define as a hot pace. Do I think the pace will be fast compared to previous Breeders' Cups? Yes. Do I think that means you're in for a meltdown? Not necessarily, because if it's Knicks Go who's setting it and doing it comfortably, everyone else is in trouble, not the horse out front.
Yeah, I just thought of a good question for you when I was seeing this up. I think that what Mark was getting at was, will it be hot in the sense that people burn up, the horses burn up and come back? I think some of them will. I don't think all of them will. I think the fun part is figuring out which of them is going to be the one that comes back. And for me, I look for horses who are in form, horses that maybe have faced that kind of pressure before, have gotten dirt in their face, and continue to persevere. And it's kind of why Hot Rod Charlie is rising up my ranks right now. Is Hot Rod Charlie he's got the guts when he fights in the stretch that I'm like, God, kind of like Tisnow when he would win the Classic. It's just like, you don't think he's gonna get there, but man, that horse has got some real heart to him. So that's kind of where I'm leaning with that.
Hot Rod Charlie's a great underneath horse. Bet that horse underneath. He's not winning the Breeders' Cup Classic. I've been through this multiple times. A talented horse, great story, awesome horse, can't win this race. He's not good enough. He's just not good enough. He's not good enough against the 3-year-olds, against Medina Spirit, against Essential Quality. How is he going to now be all of a sudden good enough against the older horses as well? And by the way, be better than those horses after running the most demanding campaign of all of those horses. To me, it's just I totally get why people love him, and you want to think that he's got a little bit more in him, but I find it hard to believe that Hot Rod Charlie's going to be able to beat this field. I do think the horse finishes top 4. But it's one of those classic, don't use in the multi-race wagers, 100% use in your tries and supers. But I hope he gets back, because I think it's lighting money on fire.
Well, if he wins, it would certainly buck the trend of the Breeders' Cup Classic winner either being an older horse or a Bob Baffert trained 3-year-old, which is one of 14 trends you can find in the free-to-download Breeders' Cup betting trends on Wagering, whatever it's called, on the Racing Dude site. Just go to the Racing Dude site and download it. It's free. Please stop making me talk. I've talked too much today. We kind of touched on this a little bit, Mike, with Asmussen. I said, if the barn gets cold going into a meet, does it worry you? Let's specifically talk about the white-haired fiend. If Bob Baffert goes cold on Friday, will it change your opinion of his Saturday runners? And the point behind this, if you don't know, is that the Breeders' Cup instituted all sorts of strict policies and things that they need to actually set up and body cameras on security guards and very intense security to make it so that there should be no question whatsoever. So based off of that, if he goes cold Friday, did it work and he can't run on Saturday?
So first question for you, who does he have running on Friday?
He has Corniche.
Okay. Who does he have running on Saturday?
He has Medina Spirit. And nope, not Life is Good. Womp womp. That's too bad. He has Gamine and Medina Spirit. Am I missing anybody?
So he's got multiple grade
Private Mission.
So he's got multiple grade 1 winners running on Saturday. And he's got a juvenile who's trying to really prove himself for the first time against anyone outside of California on Friday. Did that answer your question? No, of course not. I don't think that you can make that assumption. However, I do want to say this. If you have to go through all this to let a guy be involved in the weekend, are we really sure he should be involved in the weekend? And also, if over Preakness we can test the day before and then right after the race, why aren't we just doing that with every horse for the whole weekend? We all know Bob Baffert's not the only one who stretches the rules a little bit. Come on.
No.
Can we just get the testing done and then we don't have to worry about any of this crap? There's so many better ways to handle this than the way it's being handled. And it's a bummer. But I don't. Depending on how Corniche runs on Friday will not affect my opinion on the Saturday runners. It's to me different beasts.
I absolutely love how you broke that down because I just threw it up there as a question. That explanation was great. Nick Feldman. But by the way, I'm gonna take this away. See if it. How do I make the banner go away? Banner. Look at that. If you're watching live, the screen has been changing because Jared Welch is in the background uploading the other changes. So I'm telling you guys, you're gonna love this stuff once we get everything getting running and going for you. The question that popped up here, or sorry, statement. Nick said, "Don't forget about Joel Rosario on both days. The man will be running the money all freaking day." And so, fake game, Mike. If I gave you 7 points for a win, 5 points for second, 3 points for third, 1 point for fourth, do you take Joel Rosario or Flavien Prat, assuming they have the same number of mounts through the weekend?
I would take Joel Rosario because Flavien Prat, I think, will be at a disadvantage because of the Europeans on turf that he will not be riding.
My mouse is right over the mute button. Just say one more word. I'm just kidding. It's an interesting thing to think about. Flavien Prat at San Diego 2 years ago was the first time they had 14 Breeders' Cup races. He was the first jockey to ever ride 14 races, and the horses outran their odds a lot of times. I think Rosario is. I think he's going to have a more consistent quality of horse, whereas Prat is picking up sometimes a Japanese horse here and there. So, I'm going to stick with you on Rosario, but I don't like to say it.
His dirt mounts are just better. I mean, that's the flat out. That's the bottom line. And then the dirt mounts, I think, are going to be the most relevant if you're playing this game.
Let's do a little bit of rapid fire here with some of the other ones I got for you. Which race is most likely to produce an absolute Somobomb?
Oh, I would say the Filly and Mare Sprint. I mean, if I think Gamine is going to go down and anyone else wins that race, that one's an obvious one to produce a bomb. If you're saying like which is the absolute most wide open race, it's the turf. Like that turf mile is absolutely nuts. I mean, you can go in 11 different directions. The favorite might be 5-1. Like that's going to be a tough race to be able to get a big price. I do think both of the 2-year-old races are more open than people think. On the
dirt races,
the juvenile dirt and the juvenile fillies dirt are both more wide open than people expect. Echo Zulu, I think, is going to be bet very heavily, and I have distance concerns with. So that's another one. I think if Echo Zulu goes down, you can see a monster price. So for me, I would say the most likely non-favorite winner is the turf mile. I'm going to say the biggest number comes from the juvenile fillies on the dirt.
Okay. I'm with you. I didn't think about it. Again, I love asking these questions because you just answered in a way I never even thought of. Gamine, if she loses the Filly Mare Sprint, even if there's 5 horses in there, they're all going to be 20-1 or better. Actually, the more horses drop out of that, the less your payout's going to be. I think that the Breeders' Cup Turf Mile is the correct answer. That race is just insane. We talked about it a lot. Conversely, which race are you most excited to bet?
Turf Sprint. I mean, I love me some turf sprinting, and I think Golden Pal is a terrible favorite. So I'm going to go ahead and say the turf sprint. And I think that's one where Golden Pal might not run on the board. That's the big difference, right? If like Gamine will hit the board. I would be shocked if she doesn't hit the board. Golden Pal, I think, needs to take a step forward. And we've talked about it already. About 3-year-olds don't generally fare well in that race. I'm not sure how he's going to handle the California turf. His one race back was over Keeneland, where he ran very well in the past. So a lot of reasons to try and get away from Golden Pal. And if Golden Pal runs off the board, there's going to be some monster payouts in that race.
I'm the most excited, I think, right now to bet the Distaff. Because similar to you, where you think Golden Pal is a bad favorite, I don't think Latruska is a bad favorite. She's deserving, but I think she's a very vulnerable favorite there. I have a horse that I'm hoping is going to be around 4-5-1, who I've got my eye on, who I think is a very logical winner there. So if you want that information, buy the Breeders' Cup Inside Track Wagering Guide. You get my top 4, you get Mike's top 4, Aaron and Jared as well. So what's that?
That's your second plug. Well done.
Boom. Hey, I'm just knocking them right out here. But I'm very excited about that one because I think there's a lot of potential. If Latruska's as tired as I think she is, kind of like a lot of people think Gamine's getting tired, it's going to be interesting there. Which race scares the poop out of you to bet? And I'm so happy that I was able to put a poop emoji in the banner. You have no idea.
I mean, well, first off, appreciate everyone who's in the room right now. We got a ton of people watching and commenting. Thank you very much. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe button. We're going to have video previews for every single race for the Breeders' Cup, every single Breeders' Cup race next week. So make sure you check that out, as well as a ton of other content hidden here on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe so you get that out. Which race scares the bleep out of me to bet? The turf, probably. I'm scared that I'm going to be on the wrong Euro, and then I'm going to do something like leave the €1 off that wins at 15-1 and play the other 6 that are in it or 5 that are in it. And I also think that the turf and Oldie 75 just mentioned this in the chat. You got a little bit of that, a lot of people are scared to go to the front in that race, and you may have a really slow pace, and something funky could happen if you do end up with a really slow pace. It's one of the reasons I mentioned Acclimate was much more important to that race than Tribune was, because Acclimate is going to be up front or forwardly placed. And if Acclimate gets loose and United's sitting right there in second, maybe something funky happens, something crazy happens, because like, where do you want to be on the Del Mar turf? Forwardly placed, right? And like, if you're turning for home and you get this tight turn and they've got to try and run down one of these horses, that's how you see these crazy results happen. And to me, the turf is the race where the pace is absolutely up in the air. You have no idea who's really going to be set or how fast they're going to be going. That makes that race scary to me.
I'm excited for when we're at the Breeders' Cup, at least. I don't know about you. You'll probably have to be in the BCBC room. But usually where they put us, the press box is on the top of the Del Mar suites, and then they put us in the ancillary spot that's a tent on the roof behind them. But we usually get to watch the races from up above, up high. I'm excited for the turf races, every single one of them, because at Del Mar, they've got that chute, right? So then the temporary rail kind of disappears, and there's that gap. And every time there's a big turf race where it's a mad scramble to the finish, 3 horses dive into that gap right there. And it just makes it that much more exciting because they're surging here. You got horses coming up. The horses in the middle are just going, I'm getting the F out of here. It's exciting. I'm getting pumped up thinking about just that image of seeing them all swarm up there.
Yeah, I'm hoping I can kind of go anywhere I want with the BCBC. Some of those places, they let you bet in any kiosk. Some of them you have to be in specific rooms. So hopefully I'm able to wander around and be able to check out the whole track with you guys over the weekend.
Let's see. A couple more here. Which races post-draws will have the greatest amount of impact on your top 4?
Breeders' Cup Classic. I think it does matter where Knicks go and where Medina Spirit draw. I'm much more interested in inside speed there. The turf sprint for both the juveniles and the regular turf sprint, I think, are both important, especially for inside speed again. I also want to see who's able to there's the stalkers that get that 8, 9, 10 spot where they can just sit right outside of that first group and be able to make a wide run, so you're not worried about getting through on the rail, which can often be more of a problem in these big fields. And then, trying to think maybe the turf mile, just because of how fast they're going to go into that first turn and how big that field is. I'd be a little worried about playing anyone who's hung way outside.
I would say any kind of the sprint, honestly. The turf sprint most of all. And usually it's because the turf sprint races, if you get those inner posts, it's really terrible. I remember 2 years ago at San Anita, I was all excited to bet Eddie Haskell, the California bred, and he drew the rail, and I knew that I should have immediately cut him out of there, and I didn't. And what happens? They all break out of the gate. He was a half step slow. Boom! Everybody, and he was pinched back. He was out the whole time. The Del Mar turf sprint races, the inside 1, 2, 3 posts were really lethal at the summer meet. So I'm not saying it's a law that you need to do that here, but I'm very curious to see who goes in there. I think the turf sprint will affect, and also, if you're speed way on the outside, are you too far outside, are you stuck? But there's a lot of things that can go wrong in a turf sprint. And one tiny little thing going wrong, your horse is out.
Yep, and the dirt mile is actually another good one. Block Party just brought that up in the chat as well, because again, it's you don't want to be spun wide there, and so it really matters at where you draw and where you need to be placed to make sure that you're able to properly get the right setup. Oldie talking about Latruska and Gamine quite a bit in the chat here. Latruska, that's one of the horses where I'm a little concerned as well, just because if you watch that race back at Saratoga when she faced some solid pace pressure, it looked like a couple of the horses that she had been beating could have gotten to her. I'm a little worried that she's kind of toward the end of this season. She needs to have that one last race in her. She definitely could do it. It will be interesting to see what kind of pace pressure she gets. I think her draw is important as well. I wouldn't be shocked if you see some change of tactics from horses who have been getting beat by her to try and do something a little bit different to shake it up. And this is the first time she's facing all of the pace pressure and all of those good horses. So it'll be interesting to see how she's able to handle that. But that's another one where I'm waiting for the draw. I mean, I think a lot of these, if these favorites draw the outside and they're speed favorites, you're going to have to use more to get out there. And that just makes it a lot more difficult to be able to hang on late, especially when you have quality horses trying to chase you down.
Flip it on you. Least amount of impact. Which one you go, I don't give a rat's ass with where this horse draws, it's going to win?
Dirt mile. I mean, I think Life is Good is gone no matter where you put Life is Good. I'm not sure Ginobili can keep up. The sprint, I don't think matters as much. 6 furlong race, long race into the turn. I'm not as concerned there. We've seen Jackie's Warrior be able to run someone down. So even if you have speed inside Jackie's Warrior, that's not a huge concern for me. I mean, you could say the juvenile turf sprint, because I think Averly Jane's just faster than everybody else. So maybe she's able to just get loose. But it's the races where I think either the speed is by far the fastest, or like we don't have a horse like last year, like our boy Tis the Law, who just couldn't be inside. And so when he drove through the 3 post, it's one of the rare cases you're like, well, the 3 is just like a death post for that horse.
Yep.
And so we don't have any of those this time. So I'm not really worried about like Essential Quality drawing one of those posts or any of those horses. So for me, it's the races where I think it matters the least are the ones where the horse can get away.
Last question we have here, and then if you guys are, like Mike said earlier, you guys have been so amazing in the chat. Thank you so much. If you have any final ones, shoot them in there. We got a few minutes left here. This is my last question for us. Which horse is most likely to screw you over based on your personal bias?
Oh, Golden Pal. That's really easy for me. If I'm wrong about Golden Pal, it's going to suck. And I was wrong about Golden Pal at Keeneland. And if I'm betting against Golden Pal in that field, and that was an impressive race, but he got to go 23 early, and he's a little funky in the stretch, and it wasn't against this quality of horse. If I'm wrong about Golden Pal, though, it's gonna be a bummer. At least we get that out of the way early on a Saturday, so that I can still have some opinions late. I mean, for me, the other one is probably going to be Life is Good. I doubt I use anyone else in that race. And so if either of those horses win or lose, it won't be so great.
Chris brings up a good one. Lexitonian is my second choice right now in the sprint. That horse, at this point, I'm like, I don't care. I'm just going to keep picking Lexitonian. One of these days, maybe I'll get it right, because I'm always wrong. But I love that horse.
Let me also answer your question on that. Was actually when I was about to pick. This is a great answer to your question. My personal bias of favorites may hurt me on this day, because I am going to try and beat one of these 2 horses that may just be all-time horses and may be really dumb to try and beat. But my style, like specifically in multi-race wagers, you either have to single 4 or 5 legs, or you have to try and beat one of these 2 and leave them off. And when you get into that position, you're either going to grasp at straws and try and beat some of these favorites, which look like they're legit horses, or you're playing a $40 pick 4 straight. And either way is fine. I don't think there is a right or wrong answer in those 2. I think they're both correct answers. It just depends on what your style is and how comfortable you are. Because you could play a 50-cent pick 4 ticket for $40 and have one of these singled and spread in a couple other legs and see if you can get something big home. Or you could play it cold for $40. Either way, you're spending $40. Both ways can be profitable. You just have to make sure the ticket structure you use on your $40 bet is a profitable way to play it.
Jason's brought up Got Stormy as a horse that screws him much. I really cooled on her for this race.
Oh, so she is winning.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the case.
Can we bet the Got Stormy Casa Creed exacted just in case?
We gotta box it up for $5 or something. We have to do that, because that'll pay for the weekend if that happens. But yeah. By the way, kind of pissed off about this, that my racehorse is not allowing, if you have a share, you just go in. Back in the good old days, let me tell you about the good old days of my racehorse. If you had a share, you got to go in the winner's circle. Now you got to do a lottery, and we'll bring 8 of you in there or some stupid bullshit like that. Like if God Stormy wins, I don't get in, that's fine. If Tis a Magician won and I wasn't in the lottery, Del Mar will not exist as a track anymore. I'm just going to scorch earth everything.
Wouldn't you just go in anyway?
Actually, yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. If you're dressed properly and you have a pass around your neck, they're not stopping you.
I tried that at the San Anita one a couple of years ago, and they actually did stop me.
Got to be more confident then.
I need to be prettier, Mike. That's the problem. I'm not pretty enough to pull that off. I was back in the day. I'm not anymore. You're
a little too tall. That's the problem. You're too noticeable.
I need to find some basketball players and go join in with the Lakers and just go in with them. Jody says she's on with Lexitonian again. All right. So did we miss any? Are there any other questions up here, Mike? Any other comments? Block Party says, do you believe Hot Rod Charlie can win the Classic? Mike's a big firm no.
Yeah,
how about this? To build off that, what needs to happen to get Hot Rod Charlie to win, save from every other horse falling down?
Medina Spirit and Nick's Go have to absolutely go nuts up front. And Hot Rod Charlie has to sit a couple lengths, 4 lengths off of them when they're going crazy up front. and be able to, they both just give up, quit, and he has to somehow hold off Essential Quality after Essential Quality gets a wonderful pace to run into. That would be how it happens.
This is the one I was looking for. Dan, it's long, I'll paraphrase, but Dan says the 2017 Breeders' Cup, a lot of the winners sat just off the lead. Closers weren't very effective. Is that useful information at the 2021 Breeders' Cup 4 years later, Mike?
I'm going to say no, because there's look, tracks change a lot over that time. We know the Del Mar track has changed quite a bit over that time. The horses also changed quite a bit. Track bias, I think, gets a little bit overrated on some of these big weekends, like the Breeders' Cup specifically. If you think about how many times the best horse wins going wire to wire in these races, where it's the heavy favorite, and then people come back and say, oh, there's a track bias towards speed. Yeah, well, there's also a track bias toward the best horse winning. I mean, that's part of the thing. And when you have a speed horse who's not going to get in trouble, isn't getting a ton of pace pressure, it's a lot more likely that horse is going to win than anyone else in the race. I mean, it's the easiest possible setup for a favorite. And like you look at last year at Keeneland, you could say there's a speed bias. Okay, there was also like a best horse winning on the front bias, where the best horse was consistently on the front and consistently getting the job done. Specifically here, though, looking back at like 2017, I think it's tough to say, well, because 4 years ago they were able to do it, 4 years later the track is going to play the same way. I kind of take all of these trends with a grain of salt. Like the same with like, okay, well, there are 3 Euros that won. The 1 year I don't think sets the bar. I think it's when you see it consistently happen year over year, you can definitely say, okay, Europeans in these races will have more success. Track bias, I think, is something that's a lot more difficult, just because you rarely have this group of horses run at one track and be like come together in this way. It makes it a lot harder to say, yes, there's definitely a bias.
One great place you can go to find out any kind of betting trends, like say a bias of Wesley Ward trained horses winning on the front end of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. You can get the 14 betting trends to know for the 2021 Breeders' Cup, available for free at racingnews.com. I'm going to plug that one last time. Get it in there.
If Raging Bull and what's the other Chad Brown horse, man?
Rock Emperor.
And Rock Emperor, man, if those two win, I don't even know what I'm going to do. I mean, that's just going to be an absolute head scratcher. But yeah, I mean, I guess it is possible that they're able to win. But if Raging Bull and Rock Emperor both win, I will be a loser that weekend, at least in those sequences.
Imagine. I don't even want to. Wait, hang on.
I believe that we will win.
Here comes Rock Emperor. Here comes Rock Emperor.
I love that video so much.
Never again. No, that doesn't need that doesn't need to ever be played again. I cannot believe Rock Emperor won that race. Oh, that's the time he wins.
Over at racenews.com here, you can see on the screen the final early Breeders' Cup predictions from Aaron Halterman are live. He did change them after the pre-entries, including his Juvenile Phillies turf pick, Wild Beauty, who I was very excited about. I think you might have been as well. She's not coming over anymore, so he did update that as well. The wagering guide pre-sale link is right here. All you got to do is go to racenews.com, click on this one right on the homepage, 14 trends to know. You go there, you can download it for absolutely free. We're not even going to take your credit card information. You just go right there and check it out. It's a lot of fun. Mike, I think we can wrap that up on the sport or the horse racing angle, unless you had anything else. And then if you want to cover the football real quick before we get out of here.
No, I think we're good on horse racing. We're still figuring out the schedule for next week. Maybe we'll do like a Monday show and we'll do the pick four from Del Mar on Wednesday or something.
Monday's the draw for the Breeders' Cup. So we're going to do a live stream reaction to the Breeders' Cup
You
draw.
can still fit another Magic Mike show in there. It's not like you're busy. You got nothing to do on Monday.
Actually, yes. You know what? We can do that. We'll do those.
So
we're going to do the live stream thing. It'll be Aaron and Jared and Mike and I and maybe some other special guests on Monday as soon as the Breeders' Cup draws are finished. So we'll do that live here. And then Mike and I, we can do a pick four show that on Magic Mike later.
See,
do that.
I'm for the people.
You are for the – hey, listen, you got to build the bankroll somehow, right? And this is how we're going to build that. Yeah. So anyways, over at – wait, did you take it?
I'm producing in the background, baby. Don't even worry about it.
What the hell is happening over here?
Now you're just moving all over the place. You're killing me.
Damn it. Get out of here. This is – okay. Well, this is what happens when the monkeys –
I got you. Don't worry. There you go.
There we go. Thank you. Can we get that banner out of here, too?
Down now. Yeah, that wasn't me. That's you.
There we go. Look at that. I didn't even remember putting that up there. Oh, man, that looks sexy. Hey, I'll answer this to you. There's like a 30-second delay. Matthew Smith Resurrected. Can I ask a question? Yes, you can. Go ahead and post it there, and we'll answer it. But anyways, get over to racenews.com. This is what it's all going to look like. Please check out the Breeders' Cup Inside Track to the Breeders' Cup Wagering Guide. I hate that so much. It's so hard to say 20 times. Make sure you go check that out. The pre-sale is going on right now. The Blinkers Off boys will be live here in about an hour, I want to say, probably 4:30 Pacific time. Make sure you check them out. If you miss it, get the podcast, YouTube link. They're going to do something fun for the Breeders' Cup as well. I don't know. I asked Aaron, and he was pretty tight-lipped. So I'm sure whatever they do, it'll be a lot of fun. Mike, let's talk about some football while my computer decides to spaz out over here. I didn't get a chance to actually ask you because we didn't have a show on Monday how the Samo six-pack did, but give us a quick recap of how you did with your six-pack and then any plays football-wise that you're looking forward to this weekend.
Sure. Before we jump into it, if you're not sticking around for the football stuff, make sure to check out the Equinedge YouTube at I think it's 9 o'clock Eastern tonight. Me and Brady Klotz are going to be doing a live show. We're going to be covering Remington Park. We'll be covering, what's the other one? Charlestown, and then we'll be talking about Breeders' Cup as well. So make sure you go over and check that out. Six-pack went 2-4 this week. Kind of a bummer, and to be honest, we're lucky we went 2-4. It wasn't great. The honorable mentions continue to roll. They went 4-2, so that's nice. But we got to get the six-pack going again. As for tonight, awfully interesting game. The Cardinals are -6 at home against the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are without their top two wide receivers. I still kind of like the Packers team total over. This game has gone down from the total perspective, and the Packers have become a larger underdog, which means that not only because of both of those, you're getting a double drop on the Packers team total, which is right now at 22.5. If Arizona is able to score, Green Bay is going to play fast. And if they play fast, I would believe Rodgers can lead them to at least 24 points. So I'm going to play the Arizona or the Green Bay over 22.5 team total tonight.
Dennis says he took Packers +6. Robert Tanyan +220 anytime touchdown. That seems like a pretty good angle.
That's a good number. I would not be shocked if I can't remember the receiver's name now. The guy that they just picked up that they used to have on the Packers back in the day. I'll remember it in a second, or someone in the chat will mention it. But he is now their number one. Randall Cobb is now their number one wide receiver. So I wouldn't be shocked if Cobb is one of those guys that also is a nice plus money on anytime touchdown, or if he has a big game, because he's going to be the lead target tonight.
This made me laugh from Chris. Good thing you bet those preseason games the same players are playing tonight.
I still don't believe in the Cardinals too. So I would play Packers +6 if I was playing anything. I'm just not a big believer in the Cardinals. I love 3 people saying Cobb now in the chat.
Well, it's Dr. Tang, they just keep saying it over and over. Again, 30-second delay, guys, so we figured it out. Anyways, over here, racenews.com/sports, you can listen to or watch. I prefer watching the latest episode of Dudes Who Bet Sports. It's Papa Dude and Aaron Halterman covering the NFL and college football. Papa Dude himself has been especially hot. Aaron has gotten hot because he switched to starting doing the team totals. Dennis, who's in the chat, tipped him off that, Aaron, you're pretty good at saying that stuff. You should start betting it. Aaron's actually been pretty good. Free pick analysis on the Green Bay Packers at the 7-0 Arizona Cardinals, Tampa Bay at New Orleans as well. The Dudes Who Bet Sports show is better and better every week, every episode. They're on Mondays and Thursdays. This time, the Papa Dude rant turned into he was ranting about William Shatner going into space.
I mean, it's fair. There's absolutely no reason for that to happen, but that's what's.
But would you have expected that at the end of the Dudes Who Bet Sports segment? I didn't. I was driving, almost ran into a flagpole. I couldn't believe it. I was like, "What is he doing?" No,
I would expect the unexpected going into there. And now we're officially on Deshaun Watson watch too. He might end up being a Dolphin by the time we do a show. I'm not overly excited about. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, there's just a bunch going on right now in the NFL. It's a little messed up. Yeah, MVS was ruled out tonight. It's Randall Cobb and Trevelyan who are the two go-to dudes through the year. I wouldn't be shocked if Aaron Jones goes over his catches and over his receiving yards, as well as he'll probably be the number 3 or even number 2 option through the air at this point.
Before we get out of here, Mike, one last time, plug what you're doing tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific with our buddy Brady Klotz.
Yeah, we're doing good chalk, bad chalk. We're going to talk about. We're going to do handicapping live using the Equinedge tool, just talking through some races at both Remington Park and Charlestown, and then we'll also take questions and be talking about the Breeders' Cup because, hey, why wouldn't you be talking about the Breeders' Cup at this point? So make sure you go over to the Equinedge YouTube and check that out as well.
What else would you be doing? Thank you guys so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. We went a lot longer than I thought we were. You were fantastic. Like Mike said before, we have a lot of stuff coming to the Racing Dudes YouTube channel. So go to the YouTube page. It's youtube.com/Racing Dudes. It's very simple. You can subscribe to the channel right there. There's a little bell icon. If you click that, you'll get notified every time that there's a video that comes up. And we've got a lot of them coming. You're not going to want to miss it. Lots of previews, analysis, and of course the usual fun that we have the Racing Dudes team. You can follow us on Twitter. I am at Curtis Kalleward. He is at Somobomb18, number 1, number 8. You're still over there. Okay, good. I had to make sure you were still in the right spot over there. Corporate Overlords at Racing_Dudes. Don't do that to me. I saw that. Blinkers off. We'll be back live tonight in just a little bit. So especially if you're subscribed and get the notifications, you're going to know when Aaron and Jared are live to answer your Breeders' Cup questions later tonight. We'll be back on Monday for the live post reaction draws, as well as a Magic Mike Show pick 4 at Del Mar. Looking ahead. Until then, I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time.
The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.